Welcome to the review of Little Hope. Warning, contains spoilers. About Little Hope. Little Hope is second part of Dark Pictures anthology released on October 2020. If you're not familiar with the Dark Pictures anthology or Until Dawn, here's a quick breakdown. Much like Man of Medan, which was the first part of the game, linked here, where the player is taking control of different characters and their actions and decisions. Based on these actions and decisions, the outcome of the story changes, giving you multiple different endings. That's what Little Hope is about. So if you want a horror game that is heavily based on storytelling and atmosphere, this is a good game for it. There are a few jump scares as usual, of course. Now, this review will contain some spoilers, but there will be a warning. If you're worried about the spoilers, just skip ahead. So, with the story on this game. The story begins with our bus driver. He's diverted to a town called Little Hope due to an accident at the road ahead. Well, it turns out that our bus driver also gets into an accident of his own. So after the accident, scene changes to Clark House. There is a fight between Mr. and Mrs. Clark.
I just caught the game with the guys, honey. That's it.
That's not it. Never is.
And in a series of events that is totally Little Girl's fault, house fire happens, killing everyone. Seriously though, just jump down, Tanya. Just jump down. After this little fire, scene is back to the scene of the accident where 5 passengers on the bus look for the missing bus driver and goes into a town called Little Hope, where they encounter some weird phenomenon that involves little girls, weird accents, witches, monsters, and whatnot. During all this, you take control of each characters. These are Andrew, John, Angela, Daniel, and Taylor to explore the town with. So, gameplay. Overall, the gameplay is very similar to the first game in the anthology, Man of Medan. There are still all that building of relationship, character traits, making choices, QT, etc. HUD remains clean as ever, and all the choices make difference. Although I'm not very clear on how it makes difference, but they do make difference apparently. I would have to say Little Hope plays more like a game than the previous game, Man of Medan that is. QT are in places where it is needed more. Maps feel more like actual exploration rather than just long corridors. Despite the game itself being very linear, there is a good amount of illusion to give you that feeling of exploration. Adding the new danger in this game, namely the monsters and witch hunting in the past. Not only are you trying to save your main 5 characters, you are involved in dealing with witch hunting in the 17th century. Compared to the previous game, the dangers are far more real and imminent. I think sense of danger is what drives the horror genre, and Little Hope uses this very well. All of these make the player feel more involved in the process of the story. Whether your actions and choices make a difference is a different argument for another day. Now, just like the Man of Medan, Little Hope has same drawbacks. Slowness of the game is still there, but to a lesser extent, to be fair. Playable chapter select is still there, but again, you cannot skip the cutscenes and dialogues, or even fast forward options. Again, this is not a major drawback this time, as a lot of dialogue changes as you play them again. I felt this was more so than the Man of Medan. I don't know, I could be wrong about this, but this is personal opinion experience. There is one more drawback that has surfaced in Little Hope, however. Although it has fixed or reduced a lot of cons from the previous game, like improving the gameplay, now it suffers another problem, narrative. So, spoiler alert here. Spoiler alert. The story is based on Andrew and his trauma. All our characters are fictional, and it was all a dream, an imagination. Sounds familiar? Yeah, people call that lazy story writing. I mean, yes, it does explain most of the supernatural in the game because it was all in his head. Of course, there are two sides of the coin. While it is a cliche and boring, a following story of Andrew and overcoming his trauma isn't that bad. I mean, 90% of the rom-coms follow the same cliche as do most of the slasher movies. Hell, you can say that about most Hollywood movies. It is how boring old cliches are delivered rather than just the story themselves, right? Well, here's another problem. Some things are just not explained properly, even through multiple playthroughs. What is wrong with that girl? Who is that figure who kicked the ladder? And why can't we jump from second floor? Why do you go back into the burning house? Oh, there's no way to defend these. So, conclusion. Overall, I found Little Love to be just as fun, if not more so, than the previous entry in the series, Man of Medan. I cannot stress how much I find normal walking simulators to be boring. Like, just read a book, you know? Here, there are so much more actions, characters just acting out your choices, and overall it feels like a game that plays like a movie. Emphasis on game part in Little Hope, whereas Man of Medan emphasis more on the movie part. Still, I found the whole game to be rather enjoyable and would recommend anyone to try. I have uploaded my full first playthrough of the game for those of you interested but don't want to play the game. Bear in mind that endings and progress of the story will be different depending on your choices and actions. Right, and that's it from me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.